Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hey, my sweetie. The only problem with these podcasts, you and I have the greatest conversations before the podcast, and then we start the podcast, and what can I say? The adrenaline kicks in, the fight or flight, mechanism starts, and then I can't think of a darn thing.
We have it's called performance anxiety.
I should be familiar with that. Yes.
Yes.
Like I used to tell my voice teacher that I sang so beautifully in the shower last night.
Well, isn't the shower actually really good for your lungs when you're singing? That's why when you sing in the shower, it sounds better.
Yes, it's that warm, moist air helps you. First of all, you're relaxed, so you can open. Your throat is more relaxed. When you're under strain, your throat picks up on that and it tightens, and that's what prevents you from hitting those high notes so well or getting that resonance. But when you're relaxed, you can lower your jaw nicer. You can get that vibration, that placement better, and also the warm, moist air opens up, clears your passages, and opens your throat better.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think you were going to say something.
No, I'm listening to you.
I was going to say I know we've talked about different types of humor, but what would be your lowest form of humor that you appreciate?
Lowest form of that I know you put the disclaimer there. Appreciate.
Yeah, that you appreciate.
I tell you the truth. I tell you the truth. Oh, that's a good idea. I tell you the truth. What I don't like. I don't mind
it's
jokes.
Gross humor, terrible humor.
No, really. I don't mind jokes that are a little off color, that leaves, not totally X-rated, but you might say kind of on the measure of PG-13, something like that to R, where it, there's some innuendo that's being implied, but you use your imagination, and that really is funny. I do not like graphic, gross, X-rated humor. I see nothing funny about it.
It's just horrible. Really. It's just the worst.
No, but the thing is this. What these people that tell these kind of really gross, horrible jokes that make fun of the human body, especially, sexual functions. I mean, what? No, really, stop and think about it. What are you making fun of? You're making fun of the equipment God gave us to do our job here on Earth.
100%.
What's funny?
100%.
I know you are.
This is just horrible, humorless, uneducated, beneath us. I don't see why they do it in the first place. It grinds
very
my
funny.
gears.
I know you're being
really
condescending. You're being condescending, you dirty-minded.
Whatever.
Jerk.
No, it's humor. If it's good, it makes you laugh, then it's great. No matter what it is. That's my opinion.
Well, there's something I've noticed. There's a very, very big difference between guy humor and girl humor. Girl humor tends to be more what, I just spoke about. For some reason, guys go for that really gross, graphic stuff. Why they think it's funny, I don't know.
I don't know either. It boggles my mind.
Well, the other thing I can figure out is that, when Hashem created the animals, and they said after that he created Adam, and then after Adam he created Chava, because as Hashem went on, he was creating things that were higher and higher and higher in spirituality. And therefore, man is basically a intermediary between the animals and between higher humans.
Yes.
Whereas women are of the higher human form.
100%. 100%.
Yes, but anyway,
you left the funny bone with us.
But anyway, we were talking, we had a few things we were talking about before. We were talking about mixing your own cocktails.
Yes, mix your own cocktails.
The reason I thought about it is because I usually have a gin and tonic with lime, because my chiropractor years ago said it's very, very good for muscle tone. Well, I bought, when it comes to electrolyte, like drinks that have electrolytes.
Yes.
I don't want to mention any particular product because
they don't really care, but yes.
Well, we're not here to push any particular product, but there were some of these
it's fine.
electrolyte drinks that are too disgustingly sugary, and people know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's one that they came out with fairly recently that I saw in the store, and I hadn't seen it before. I never saw this before, and I bought it, and I bought like a whole variety of them. And
Okay.
I seem to like this type more because it's not as sugary. And what I did was I took, instead of having tonic with lime and gin, instead I used this electrolyte drink instead of the lime juice, and I mixed it with the tonic and gin. It was really good. There's a nice little kick to it too.
Enjoy. I see. So is that Powerade or Gatorade? Which one was that?
Neither.
Really?
Neither.
Pedialyte?
Nope. Very funny.
No,
I like
no.
I thought Pedialyte's for when you have diarrhea and you need to replenish your fluids.
No, so Pedialyte has this whole campaign now that they're targeting adults. It used to be only for children or babies, and now it's also for adults.
Well, I remember when you kids were little, and well, you didn't. I didn't give it to you because I gave it to your older brothers and sisters when they, were sick or had diarrhea or were throwing up. The doctor told me Pedialyte to replace the electrolytes. They wouldn't drink it. They wouldn't take it. They had the flavored ones for kids. They hated it. They took a sip, they wouldn't take anymore, and I could not get them to drink it no matter what I did. So I said, forget it. It's not what are you going to do? You're going to force the kid's mouth open and pour it down their throat, and then they'll choke to death. I mean, come on. You can't do that. So they didn't take it. And there was nothing I could do about it. I just stuck to the old nice tea and sugar, tea and sugar.
Were you a picky eater when you were a kid?
Was I a picky eater? Actually, no. I liked I had a real good appetite. I can't think of any. I'm trying to think of. I cannot think of any food that I didn't like. The only thing, okay, Brussels sprouts. Something about Brussels sprouts when I ate them made me feel like I couldn't catch my breath. But everything else I liked very much. In our house we had a lot of fruits and vegetables because my father, sold that.
Yeah.
And my sisters and I, we liked all sorts of spinach. Kale was good. We mixed kale with my mother used to mix kale with gravy with onions, and you mix the kale in with it. See, my father was telling you, a lot of his clientele were Black people, and of course they liked the soul food was quote unquote the kale, the turnip greens, and they of course would mix it with pork and gravy from pork or ham. So my mother of course adapted it to kosher and instead mixed it with with gravy and onions from either turkey or chicken or regular like beef and it was very good that way. In fact, I was at some sort of simcha where I started to eat the kale that was being used as the garnish. And I started to put up my plate and eat it, and the waitress who was working on the other side of the buffet table was Black, and she started laughing at me. She says, "What are you eating that for?" I said, "Well, you as a Black person should be very well aware of this. You eat kale, don't you?" She says, "Yeah, but they mix it, of course, with ham and gravy and all that." I said, "Well, don't you realize how healthy this is?" She said, she never realized it. She ate it a lot as a kid, yeah, but she never realized how healthy it was.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Was any of us picky eaters? I think we all just had that. We just didn't have that option, so to speak. We just never really were. Those feet, as far as I can tell.
Except you had that thing that you went through when you were younger with breakfast, where all you wanted for breakfast. I think we went over this on one of our other podcasts. all you wanted for breakfast was potato chips and ginger ale. And I just let you have it. That's what you wanted. Fine. Then I came to the point where I said, no more of this. You are going to eat a healthy breakfast. And I gave you cereal with milk and I think a fruit or an egg or something. I forgot what I gave you, but it was a healthy breakfast. 2 hours later, I get a call from school. You threw it up. And I tried it a few more times. Every time, I don't know what it was. You grew out of it eventually, but you were like about 6, 7 years old. The only thing you could stomach was the ginger ale and the potato chips. It was the only thing that you could keep down.
Oh, interesting. Never gave it that much thought. So
have you ever experimented with any cocktails?
Have I experimented with any cocktails? I remember as a kid, and I realized kids do this. I saw growing up, like kids would go ahead and take a cup and fill it up with like everyone else's random drinks, could be Kool-Aid, Coca-Cola, milk, whatever, and then dare one kid to drink it, and the kid would have to drink it. That's the cocktail that I could think of. Other cocktails, I don't know. I've tried grape juice with vodka. I had Old Bay vodka with a Bloody Mary. That was good. That was actually pretty good.
I think doesn't Bloody Mary have vodka in it anyway? It's like a mix,
No, you buy the mix without alcohol, and then you pour the alcohol in it.
But you can put any alcohol you want into the Bloody Mary.
Normally, Bloody Mary, I think, is like vodka, maybe gin. I don't think gin. I don't know, something like that. But yeah.
Well, Pesci, your sister Pesci came home from Israel, and she brought with her Southern Comfort that was kosher from Israel.
Oh, nice.
Now, I never knew Southern Comfort had to be kosher. I thought Southern Comfort was a type of whiskey, and she educated me and said, no, evidently it's whiskey with vermouth. And they don't produce it in a kosher form in this country, but they produce it kosher in Israel because the vermouth has to be under hechsher.
Is there like a kosher Kahlua? Was there kosher Kahlua and is no longer?
Oh, you bet. I don't know what's going on now, but I remember there was always a kosher Kahlua as far as I remember. Yeah, I remember that very well. The Kahlua and cream, that was a good drink. Yeah, it was always as far as I remember, always kosher Kahlua. I know there is a kosher tequila.
Okay.
After but what other drinks there was? Oh, I discovered that ginger ale worked a lot better with whiskey than any other type of alcohol.
Yeah, that actually goes very well together.
I have my coworker. My coworker's daughter is a bartender.
Yeah.
She works almost every night. She attends bar. And I said to her, I bet your daughter must know how to mix every single drink imaginable. She goes, oh, yeah, it's like a whole education. When we look at bartenders, the guy or the gal behind the counter, and they're just mixing the drinks. You're popping over the bottles and handing it to you. No, they have to be educated in all sorts of types of mixed drinks. It's like I said, it's a whole education they have.
Total different side note, 180. When did your parents take something too far?
Hitting me.
Oh, that's lame. That's a stupid excuse. I want something.
They did.
Something layered. Ugh. Overly played. Boring. Overly done.
Listen, when I was 20, when I was 19 years old, 19, already in college, over 18 in the adult. A friend of mine and I, a guy friend and I, went to Pennsylvania to the Kutztown, Pennsylvania Dutch Fair.
Okay.
No GPSs in those days, no cell phones in those days. And when you got lost, lost. Well, I came home. We got lost. From Pennsylvania. I come, up to the house. It's like, I forgot what it was, 3:30, 4 o'clock, whatever. And my mother was there at the door. And I come in and she had a belt. She starts hitting me with the belt. I don't know what she thought I was doing. I said to her, what are you doing? I said, we got lost. What's your problem?
Ugh, kids these days. What they complain about? Nothing, I tell you. I was looking more for a better story. That's just it's very lame, very standard.
What, my
Sorry,
fears hit me too much? I think
yeah, it's too standard. It's too overly played.
uh, not only
It's
plain, it's the truth, man.
I know it's boring. What becomes more acceptable the older you get?
Obnoxious people. You learned eventually to kind of like tune them out and ignore them. It's like when you're younger, for some reason, especially I don't know about other people, but when I was younger, I had this like very strong sense of justice.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone said something about me that wasn't true, or a negative remark, or an insulting remark, I had that horrible, thing where I had to like, argue with them. I had to get them to see that what they said was wrong, even about other, like when I was in high school. I remember there was this one teacher, it was a substitute, and the substitute was insulting. She was horrible. She was abusive. And I got up and I started really challenging her. And
Yeah.
I got disciplined for it. I was told, hey, she's the teacher, and you just, sit down and be quiet and say, yes, ma'am. I got terribly disciplined for it. But as you get older, it's like, so what? No, as long as it doesn't cost me money, let this idiot just talk and let everybody see what a fool he or she is. And I'm not saying any, it's not worth my time, not worth my energy to even answer this jerk back.
Oh well.
I think that happens as you get older. Anyway, I wanted to go over to a different topic, planning trips.
Okay.
Like what I did with Barcelona, just like, instead of a laid out cruise or a laid out tour, getting online, finding, seeing what places are good to visit, and just getting on the bus or the train or the plane or in your car and just going there. So my next trip, God willing, that I'd like to plan, I'd like to see St. Augustine. It's evidently it's the oldest city in the United States, and a lot of things of very interesting historical interest. So right now I'm getting, I'm watching videos, trying to make a list. I found it doesn't pay to take the train there. I'm not saving any time taking the train. The Bright Line doesn't go that far north. I think no, but Bright Line goes to Orlando, but I think it does not go to St. Augustine. So, it doesn't make any sense for me to take the Bright Line. I should just drive up there, and just walk around and see the historical interest things. By the way, when you were in your travels,
Yeah.
I think you did stuff like that, didn't you? Just kind of like I know you went to Italy. I mean, did you have an itinerary planned out in Italy, or you just crashed into the country and walked around?
A friend of mine had some stuff prepared. They kind of had their own itinerary. We kind of played it by ear. It was funny because we got to the Vatican, and normally like it's a whole long line to get to the Vatican, but because we got lost, we went to the back door of the Vatican, and it's a legal, totally legal, totally normal entrance, but there was no line, and we got in there, and we got into the Sistine Chapel, and we were walking around, and like in my head, I'm like, did we just get in the Sistine Chapel like with no lines? And like it was once we left, we saw behind us, there was the main entranceway. It was a whole long line, but there's another entranceway in the Vatican that no one goes to, no one sees, no one notices.
Ooh. Oh, wow. Now they know about it. There's this podcast.
Yeah, probably.
I had something similar when we went to the Kutztown Fair. There was a main entrance. I didn't realize it cost money. There was a main entrance you're supposed to go through where you pay. And me and my friend, we were just walking around. We walked through the kitchen, the tent. We walked to the tent where the kitchen was, and just walked right through the kitchen.
That's
we
awesome.
didn't realize. We just walked right through it, just grabbed food as we were walking and started eating.
Going on these trips, though, usually you would take a snack. What would be a very oddly specific snack to bring that you enjoy?
Well, I know I don't think St. Augustine has any kosher restaurants. I'd be very surprised if they did. But Barcelona, you heard like the podcast we did like last week about how difficult that was for me. I found the best kosher snacks for me to take along with me was basically crackers are good. Um,
No, like
crackers,
specific
some
crackers.
um usually any kind of crackers that you enjoy. Crackers are very good. Um, whole fruit like a whole apple, crackers. Um, I took the the small Israeli cucumbers.
Oh, yes,
They're small.
yes.
They're very good. They, you can just wash them off. You don't have to worry about peeling them. You just eat them right like that. Celery sticks, that type of stuff is good. If you can make or if if you have if you can get a hold of peanut butter, like typically like peanut butter pretzels, popcorn, potato chips, stuff like that. But of course, that was the problem. And then, other than going to the kosher store I went to, um, I took in the kosher store I went to. They have the Bissoli snacks. I didn't. They didn't even have pretzels. They didn't have kosher pretzels there. I wanted
Wow.
kosher pretzels, so instead I got crackers, and I also got these teeny Israeli. They're cracker like, but they're very very small. They're like, I guess they're like croutons or something, and they
Mhm.
have Middle Eastern herbs that they're flavored with olive oil, and they're roasted. They're toasted. So that was a good snack. I took I always took a couple of bottles of water with me. You want to take like you want to take two bottles, like 2 bottles of water with you in the summertime. Always a good idea to take 2 bottles of water with you.
I have a question. Have you ever met a celebrity?
I'm trying to think. I'm thinking back. I met Yitzhak Pearlman.
Okay.
Did I tell you about that one?
I
We
want
went
to say yes, but
backstage.
I don't really
Okay, what
remember.
happened was this: a friend of mine and I in New York. It was right before Pesach, and we wanted to get one good concert in before Sfiras Omer.
Yeah.
So she saw that Yitzhak Perlman was performing at Brooklyn Academy of Music, and so we went there that night. And um, I didn't know he was. I didn't know he was a paraplegic. I saw he was performing sitting down. I thought that's unusual, and no, it was just himself, just him, just a solo violin.
Yeah.
That's all. No piano, no, orchestra. He was just performing solo. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. And I thought to myself, I couldn't understand. So why is he sitting? Why is he playing sitting down? I've never seen a concert performer sitting playing down. And then at the end of the concert, when I saw somebody bring out these crutches to him, I said, "Oh, now I understand." So the audience had an opportunity to go backstage and to shake his hand and talk to him a little bit, which was, amazing. You know what I mean? Because usually in most of these concerts, you have guards that want to keep the audience away from the performer.
Yeah.
Security reasons these days. But this was before September 11th. So, things were a little, more casual. So my friend and I went backstage, and this girl, everyone shaking hands with him and congratulating him, saying what a wonderful concert it was. And the girl that was before us, she takes his hands and she's crying. Oh, it's so wonderful. Oh. She's like, almost like, how can I say it? Flushing over him, and
Yeah.
he's just
He was
smiling.
a fangirl, being a fangirl.
Yeah, and he's how can I say it? He's a gentleman. You know what I mean? He's very, very much every bit of a gentleman. And so he, of course, obviously did not want to get too physical with this girl who was just trying to hug him and trying to get, and he was like standing back a little bit and just shaking her hand. Thank you. Very politely saying, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the concert. So after she went, after this girl was gushing and gushing all over him, practically falling over him, he puts out his hand to shake our hands, and we said, we're sorry, we're Orthodox Jewish girls, and we're Shomer Nagia. We do not touch guys we're not related to. And he was so impressed. He goes, wow. He said, this is interesting. He says, I've never had this before. This is something. He said, wow, this is amazing. So he said, we explained that this was our last concert that we were going to be able to get in before Sfiras Omer. And we wanted to thank him for giving us such a memorable concert right before the time when for 6 weeks we won't be able to listen to any music. And he just go, wow, really? So we said, yeah. And we said, by the way, we're Chabadniks. Do you put on tefillin? And he says, you know something? He says, it's funny you should say that. He says, I was down at Columbus Circle this afternoon. I saw the Chabad truck there, the mitzvah tank. I was very tempted. He said he was very tempted to go over and put on tefillin, but something kind of stopped him. He lost his nerve. He didn't do it. But he says, you know what? He says, he said, I think next time I do see a mitzvah tank, I think I will go over and put on tefillin. And, that was basically the end of the conversation. And we thanked him again. And, that was it. I'm trying to think of any. Now, I did meet, when I was a teenager, the then governor of Maryland.
Okay.
It was Spiro Agnew, who later would become the vice president of the United States. Beth Tefillah was breaking ground for its new synagogue out in Baltimore County. And he was invited to come to the breaking ground ceremony. And he was very nice. I came over, he shook my hand. Hi, what's your name? Where do you go to school? And how do you like it? Yada, yada, a little like, small talk. And seemed like a very nice, just a very, very nice, friendly guy. Very ordinary guy. He was, he and his wife were Greek Orthodox. And they were just very, how can I say it? They're very casual people.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I've ever met any other celebrities. I've met a few murderers.
What do you mean? Explain.
I met a couple people who turned out to be murderers.
Like who?
Okay. And there was a guy. Oh yeah. When I was 12 years old, I used to participate in this recreation program.
Yeah.
And there was a guy that was in charge of it who taught guitar and was in charge of basically the recreation program. And he calls me up one day and he says, I want to discuss something with you. Do you know what it is? Now, I don't remember the whole conversation, but I remember one part of it where he said, do you know what it is to be a leader of men? And I said, I'm not quite sure. He says, well, I think you have a lot of leadership qualities. I'd like you to come to my office and we can discuss it. Well, you know me, I'm chronically late.
Yeah.
So I missed the appointment. I came too late. He was already gone. Later, I apologized to him. He said, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's okay. I found out from a woman who had also been in that program as a 12-year-old. And she says, do you remember such and such? I said, yeah. He was a child molester.
Oh, wow.
So, Baruch Hashem, for my lateness, it worked out.
Oh, God. What about a murderer, though? You talk about murderers.
Okay, a couple of them I've met. Talk to your aunt, though. Your aunt's a psychologist. She's met quite a few.
Yeah, but that's like on purpose. This is by accident.
Yeah.
This is our interesting.
Okay, so when I was in Israel,
Yeah.
there was this couple that was staying at the same youth hostel that I was staying at, and you could hear this woman screaming at this guy. The guy, it was an American guy and an Israeli woman.
Mhm.
And she was always berating him, always screaming. Late at night, you could hear her yelling at him down the hall, at morning, noon, night, always on his case, always yelling at him. He never did anything right, always yelling at him. And so finally, I couldn't take it anymore. And I said to her, look, I said, do you have to be so mean to him all the time? And so she says to me very coolly, as she takes a puff of the cigarette, 'tis none of your business.
Oh, wow.
So I said to her, well, I wish people like you weren't my business, but I think it's only right that I should speak up when I see somebody being abused. And she kind of like just, ignored me. About 10, 15 years later, I
Yeah.
pick up the Sun paper and I see an article about a court case in Israel that is making world history. Why is it making world history? The perpetrators, the victim, the lawyers, and the judges are all female, all of them.
Interesting.
And this is like the first court case in history where wall to wall.
It's just women.
Yeah, just women. So the situation was the wife of this Israeli banker was involved in a relationship with this Israeli woman And both of them turned out not to be nice people. What happened was they got a hold of an account that an elderly American lady had opened up to save for her retirement, and she intended to retire to Israel. They were somehow able to, I don't know, get in touch with her. I think the banker's wife or something, I don't know. They were able to get in touch with her and somehow establish a friendship with her. And in the meantime, the banker's wife was able to get into the account. They stole the money. And then this is really sad, when the woman came to Israel, they drowned her in the beach of Tel Aviv.
Wow.
So they said that the Israeli woman was in another relationship with an young American man, and they thought that he was part of it. But after investigating, they found out that he was totally innocent. As a matter of fact, they characterized the relationship between this American man and this Israeli woman as "quote unquote" an abusive relationship, abusive on her part.
Yeah.
That she was being abusive to him. Anyway, they showed their picture in the newspaper, and I went, "Oh my gosh!"
Jeez.
I recognized them right away.
All right.
Man,
Well,
I came really close to being. Well, anyway, there was another murderer that also I ran into.
Okay.
There was this girl I ran into who she was always angry at me, constantly angry at me. Yeah, she was constantly angry at me, constantly. One time I was using the bathroom, and she was banging on the door, yelling that I was taking too long. So I did something nasty. I purposely pushed open the door real fast against her and said, "Oh, did I hurt you? I'm so sorry."
Oh, that's horrible.
Well, she wound up shooting somebody.
Oh, wow.
She wound up being an active shooter. She went on a rampage where she tried to poison some people, but they didn't take the poison. And at the same time, she also went on a shooting rampage and killed somebody.
Oh my God.
Finally, she committed suicide afterwards, and the police were closing in on her. She shot herself. And I saw the name. I said, "My goodness, that name sounds familiar. Boy, does that name sound familiar." And I looked at her picture. I went, "Ooh, oh my goodness. Oh well.
Wow.
Oh well."
All right. I love you, Mo, but we're out of time.
Okay, sweetness.
But okay. All right. I love you. Have a good Travis.
You too. I wish we could finish this on a higher note, on a happier note. I've been dealing with psychopathic.
I think it's great. I think it works fine. I don't mind. I think it's okay.
Well, there's this guy. When you go on, I haven't seen him lately, but there was a man on YouTube that had stories about these psychopaths, and he always ends his stories with "Stay safe out there."
Yeah. All right. I love you, Emma. Have a good Shabbos.
I love you, and have a great Shabbos, darling.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I know you would like it, and my mother would too.